Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast with your hosts, Mike Walters and Eddy Jones. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
All right, welcome back to Ducks and Pucks. We are ready to get the season going at home finally, Eddie. The Ducks went on the road, played one game and lost. We're going to talk about that game. We're going to talk about the homestand coming up. We're also going to talk about the Despres extension, some comments from the owners as well, and get you caught up on all the action. But first off, I want everybody to know that today is Eddie's birthday, so we'll give him a happy birthday. It's his 21st birthday. So happy birthday, Eddie.
Thanks. And always nice to have a home game on my birthday, too.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll cover the Sharks game now. Unfortunately, Eddie, in this one, the Ducks lost. They came out strong in the beginning, and they kind of went back and forth in the second period and then kind of faltered in the third. And the Ducks ended up dropping this one, a 2-0 in what featured a goalie duel between Jones and Anderson.
Yeah, and you know that could have made the difference. I mean, Martin Jones made a couple key saves to keep the Sharks in it, and obviously so did Freddie. And in the end, the Sharks outshot us 44-27, and that was the real difference. They ended up having more scoring chances, and for Freddie to stop all 44 shots, that would have been asking a little bit too much, I think. And it's disappointing to lose the first game of the season, but it's something we've come to be used to over the last few seasons, and the Ducks have been pretty poor in season openers, and it's the first of 82 games, and you'd expect them to bounce back tonight against Vancouver.
Yeah, definitely. We've had a hard time in the season openers, and we've had a hard time with the Sharks. Last year we only won one game out of 5, so. It was a little disappointing. I hoped the Ducks would get one goal. I think Marlowe's goal at the end of the second period was kind of a backbreaker because I think up to that point it was a pretty even back and forth game, and you kind of felt like whoever got the first goal might have won that game, Eddie. That was just kind of the type of game that it seemed to be unfolding after the first 40 minutes.
Yeah, and what was good to see in the first two periods was the Ducks seemed to be able to match the speed of the San Jose Sharks, which was obviously something we were looking to improve on. Adding Hagelin and bringing in guys like Samueli and quicker guys to match the speedy teams like Chicago and San Jose. And for the first two periods, it seemed to be okay, and then we got into the third period, and the tides turned, and San Jose took over the game, and a lot of our guys seemed a little bit tired. We got hemmed in the zone there for 3 or 4 minutes, where Bieksa was left out there for a really long shift. He couldn't change, so. It's a good start. I wouldn't say it was a poor game. I think, like you said, they played good for 40 minutes, and they just had to continue on, and they really could have made a run at it.
Now, given that the Ducks lost the first game, of course, a lot of comments came out after as far as what should change or what needs to happen, and everybody, it's one game, so we can't panic, but. The two biggest critiques that I saw from the fans was Perry and Getzlaf. A lot of people didn't like that they were separate, which they were most of the game. You only saw them briefly together in the third period. And I at first I'm kind of for them being separate, but after the way that game unfolded, Eddie, I wasn't too impressed with Stewart on the first line. I almost kind of want to switch them, put Perry back on the first line and Stewart on the third line. I mean, like we said, it's early, but I don't know. Stewart just didn't really impress me too much, at least in a first-line role, Eddie.
Hey, that whole first line in general wasn't, very impressive. I mean, Perry was our best forward on the night, and it didn't really seem to matter what line he was on. He was making chances, and had a couple really golden chances in that second period to put the Ducks ahead, and that first line was kind of non-existent. There was a couple plays that Hagelin and Getzlaf made together that looked like they had some promise, but Stewart just seemed like he was a step behind on that first line, and I'm sure Bruce will shake it up. Things get blown out of proportion when a line, when two guys like that get split up and you go through the first game and you don't score any goals, but I'm sure with Bruce we'll see some kind of changes for the game tonight.
Yeah, and another change that people had recommended to me as well is they want to see Manson play Stoner had 3 turnovers in the first game, which has been what he's been known for and what a lot of people jump on him for. So that may be something we'll see tonight too. Once we get the lineups, Eddie, we may see Manson instead of Stoner. I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but I do agree with you. I think Bruce will shake it up on the offense and the defense tonight.
Yeah, that's for sure. And going into the home opener tonight, a little bit better record in the home opener than season openers. The Ducks are 12-9-1 all time. Opening in the Honda Center, and they've won 4 of the last 5, so a little bit better record than when they start the season on the road. But it'll be a good game tonight. Vancouver has already played 2 games. This is going to be their third, and they've looked pretty good. The Sedins have been decent, and the younger guys that they brought into the lineup have played well. So it's going to be a tough game. I think Ryan Miller was given Sunday off, and it looks like he's probably going to start this game too. So they're going to come in with a strong lineup, and they're a little bit different team. A lot of turnover happening in Vancouver, but they still got the core guys there, so it's still going to be a difficult matchup.
Yeah, and I think tonight the key for everybody is obviously Kessler playing against his former team. We've seen that all last season, so that's nothing new. But also Bieksa too. I think he's going to be jacked up tonight, Eddie, as well, to go against his former team. So I think you're going to see him, be flying around on the ice and, laying some good hits there on Vancouver.
Yeah, and, Press is a new guy on that team, and Dorsett, and they both already have over 15 penalty minutes in the first 2 games, a couple fights already. So this could get a scrappy game. I know last night, there was only 2 penalties in that game, but it was getting kind of chippy throughout the course of the game, and this could be another game like that, a Pacific Division rival. They're always tough games, and the Vancouver Canucks are a pretty big team with a lot of grinders out there, so it could get chippy.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting this game to be a little bit more intense. The game against the Sharks got a little intense, but it was nothing like that preseason battle we saw. So I'm thinking maybe tonight we might see a little bit more of that. Also expect Anderson to go tonight as well. Again, I haven't gotten the official word, but I would think he would start in net tonight, Eddie.
Yeah, you would expect so, and he has such a great record against Vancouver. The Ducks have gone 8-1-1 in the last 10 games against Vancouver, so you would expect him to go in after such a great performance. Unfortunately getting the loss 2 days ago, but you would expect him to be in there over Hudobin.
Yeah, and for those of you that are going to the game tonight, make sure you get there early too. They're going to have the orange carpet event. It starts at 3:30. I know some people are getting there at 1, 2, 3. So if you're going to go early and you want to see the players walk in, go for it. Make sure you bring plenty of water and dress accordingly, because it's supposed to be in the high 90s in Anaheim. So it's been just hot weather the last couple weeks. Looking forward to this week too. The Ducks are going to be on a big homestand, and they're going to play the Arizona Coyotes and the Colorado Avalanche Wednesday and Friday, respectively. The Coyotes are a real big surprise, Eddie. They're 2-0. I threw out that tweet the other day when I had turned on the game against the Kings, and they were already up 4-0. So Smith's been playing awesome in goal, and it's a game that we can't overlook. After we play Vancouver, Arizona is going to be a good test too. They've only given up 2 goals in their first 2 games against Pittsburgh and LA, Eddie.
Yeah, from one of the teams that led in the most goals last season, and the team that everybody expected to probably finish in the bottom of the league this year, and they have a tough opening 2 games against LA and Pittsburgh. And I think if you asked anybody, they'd probably say that you would expect them to lose those first 2 games, but they've had a lot of contribution from 2 of the newer guys, and Anthony Duclair and Max Domi, who both have 2 points in their first 2 games, and playing on the line with Martin Hansel, who's also contributing, and Tobias Ryder, who's going to be one of their main goal scorers this year. If they want to stay out of the bottom, then those are the guys they're going to have to look to. But an impressive start for them, but I don't see it carrying on too much past here.
I agree with you. It's a surprise start, but for them to sustain it throughout the year is going to be a whole other question that we're going to have to see for that team. And also Colorado, it'll be an interesting game. This one may be a lot more high scoring, Eddie. Again, in the preseason, they didn't score as much, but in their first 2 games, they've scored 10 goals. Boschemann's assisted on 5 of those 10, so we're going to see him in that game. And that one's going to be interesting. I expect the Vancouver and Arizona games to be, tighter games, maybe 2-1, 3-2, those types of games. But the Colorado game, could end up being, another one of those 4-5, 3-4, 6-4, whatever. It could be a shootout in that game.
Yeah, and this was a team we talked about in our preseason preview that once they get scoring, they have a lot of good guys in their team that can put the puck at the back of the net. And Landeskog has 3 goals and 5 points in the first 2 games. McKinnon, coming off a bad season last year, he's got 5 in 2 games. Iginla has 2 goals. Eric Johnson started well. Boschemann obviously with 5 assists, and they have a lot of guys who can hurt you on this team. And Duchesne still is left pointless in his first 2 games, so they're not even firing on all cylinders yet. So it's a scary team. If they can get some good goaltending from Varlamov, it could be a really tough night for anybody who has to face them.
Yeah, and as we always talk about too during the week, we talk about the Ducks winning the week. That's been Boudreau's mantra every year. Is each week you want to win the week. And if you go into this one, Eddie, Vancouver, Arizona, Colorado, I think the prediction for the week, I would say the Ducks would take 2 out of 3 of these. That's my prediction. I think they're very winnable. I think that they could win all 3. But after what happened against San Jose, I think the Ducks take 2 out of 3 for this week. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that they should take 2 out of 3. I mean, they could go and win all 3, but you would expect them to beat Arizona even with the strong start that Arizona's had. And even tonight, I think tonight is an easier game than when you have to go face Colorado. Obviously, Varlamov has struggled, but if the forwards there keep playing well and Varlamov has a good night, it's going to be a tougher game than the one in Vancouver tonight. So I think you got to win these first 2, and then if you're on a roll and you got those 2 games under your belt, it might make it a little bit easier on Friday to play against Colorado.
I agree, and I think some of the things that we can talk about how the Ducks can improve too from the first game. I think the first one is traffic, Eddie. The Ducks are a huge team. They've got huge forwards, and that first game against the Sharks, they didn't really set up a lot of screens. I mean, you saw Perry get in front of the net here and there. You saw a few other guys crash the net, but they weren't really making Jones's life miserable in the crease. And I think if they're going to do it against Smith and Miller and Varlamov, that's what the Ducks are going to, I think, need to do. Probably number 1 priority is screen the goal in these 3 home games coming up.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And you saw that that's what they wanted to work on, especially on the power play in preseason. And I'm sure we'll see more of that with a couple line juggling is going on as well. But before they even get to that point, I think they got to enter the zone a lot cleaner than they were against San Jose. I know Peter DeBoer is the new coach of San Jose, and he's coached the Devils over the last few seasons, and they're infamous for their trap style defense when they get a lead where it's boring hockey, but it's shut down defense and it's really hard to break down. And we might see a little bit more of open play, and the Ducks getting back to what they did last year, where they can either dump it in or carry it in and forecheck hard, win the puck back, and cycle it around and just tire teams out. And we might be able to see that more familiar style of play tonight. We'll have to see and judge from there.
Yeah, you make a good point on that too, as far as entering the zone and getting the forecheck, which you saw that in that third period against San Jose. The Ducks just had the most difficult time doing that once San Jose got that 1-0 lead, as you talked about. And what was interesting is that some of the Ducks players also talked about the face-offs. Trying to win those face-offs and doing what you got to do. Kessler and Horkoff were talking about the new rules, Eddie, and what do you think about the new rules on the face-off as far as them putting the stick down, how they changed it, how it used to always be the visiting team had to, and now it's based upon the situation of where the face-off is on the ice?
It can be difficult for players. I mean, it's going to take a couple games for them to get used to it. Kessler had a good night in the face-off draw, so did Getzlaf, but Horkoff was only 33%, and for some guys it's going to be easier to pick up, and for other guys it's not, and you're just going to have to it's just going to take games and take a certain amount of face-offs, and eventually they're going to get used to it. But and with any rule change, there comes a little bit of rusty play before they can get used to it.
And what do you think of the rule change? Some people are saying, oh, it's good for offense because now the defending center has to put his stick down on the ice, depending on where the circle is, where in the past it was always the visiting team. You think that that's going to make more offense, or do you think it's just more of an adjustment like you talked about from before?
I think it's more of an adjustment. I mean, when you had the home team being able to get a slight advantage on the face-off draw, I mean, I like it better in situational where it's more of a fair chance no matter if you're at home or away. Same with the being able to change your lines last when you're at home kind of thing. I mean, the rules in the league that favor home teams, and I get it, and it makes sense. But I like this rule change in the way that it kind of evens it out if you're on the road.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does even it out, and is going to be an adjustment period for the Ducks. Especially these first couple of weeks and some of the games. Some of the other news that came up, the latest thing is Despres was signed to a 5-year extension, $18.5 million, $3.7 million annual average salary. It's a really good move, Eddie. It's shoring up the defense. Murray's talked about getting all the other defenders in there too. You still got to get Anderson to an extension. You still got Lindholm and Vatanen out there. What did you think of this deal? It seemed like a lot of fans are really happy about this.
Yeah, I think he still has a lot of potential. He's a young guy, and I think everybody agrees that we won that trade. Swapping him for Lovejoy, and being able to lock him up for 5 years at $3.7 million annually is a good deal. It's a little bit more than I thought he would get. But it shows how much the Ducks believe in his potential, and if he ends up being a top 4 defenseman, we got him locked down for the long term at a relatively low cost if he ends up producing at a high level. So I think it's a good deal for the long term, and like you said, it locks up more of the core of the young guys that we want to have on the team for a long time to come.
Yeah, I think just the main issue we talked about this is to see who else gets signed, to extensions. This deal that Despres did goes forward next season. So the Ducks cap right now is still the same. It's just under $8 million, the room that's left. I can't remember the exact number, but it's $7 million and change. So the Ducks will be fine with the cap this season. I know some people had asked questions about that, and were a little worried about how that money was going to pan out, but that's the situation now. It didn't change anything, at least for this season. So, I'll be curious to see. I mean, I obviously think the Ducks are going to keep Anderson and Lindholm in extensions too, but Murray's talked about the defense too and trying to retain everybody. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, it's early in the season and too early, I think, to talk about any kind of trades or anything like that. But it's definitely something that we'll keep your eye on come middle of the season, Eddie.
Yeah, that's for sure. And a lot of talk with Stoner and if he'll get moved, and I mean, there's a lot of hate right now around him. Obviously with the bear thing going on and possible protests and other things. But even with that, I think to wait for anybody to be moved to make room for cap space or anything, you would wait at least until the trade deadline, and if not even until around the draft to trade anybody. You want to have you saw Bolesky didn't get traded last year because they wanted to have the best chance at winning the cup and having quality players throughout the team in a depth role, and you might see that happen this year as well, depending on where they are in the standings come March, and we'll have to wait and see. And I think right now the team's in a good position. Obviously there's a lot of key guys that still have to get signed, but I think Murray knows what he's doing, and I'm sure he wouldn't let one of those guys walk.
Yeah, exactly. And tied into all the contracts and the money and all that, the news that came out this last week too, the Samuelis, they talked about the financial situation, which I thought was kind of interesting. A lot of people talked about and emphasized the fact that the Samuelis have, put in a lot of money into the team. They put in over $100 million since 2005 when they bought the team from Walt Disney. And it seemed to be concern among people because they had stated that they had lost money in the millions, double-digit millions. I don't think it's really a big concern, Eddie. I mean, the fact is they're really trying to put out a team that's going to compete every year. And if you look at the last 3 years, the Ducks have been competing. They've been first in the Pacific all 3 years. They've been, one or two in the conference, in the league. I just don't really see the money being an issue in terms of them losing some money because also they upgraded the scoreboard and they did all these other great things and they really improved the fans' experience at the game, I think. And you can tell that they're trying to put a team that's going to win not 1 year but multiple years.
Yeah, and a good team to model, and that I've seen mentioned around these stories is to model they want to model the success of Detroit, and obviously winning a couple Stanley Cups would be nice, but just being able to get back to the playoffs, in the next decade or two in a row, or only missing it once and getting back in it and staying in the playoffs, and I think that's important to any team's financial success. But I don't think it's a surprise. I mean, it's a non-traditional hockey market, and they had to build this team up from nothing. And you look at LA and San Jose, they've all had to do the same, and they're still here. And the Ducks are a successful team too. I think if they're near the bottom, you'd be a little bit more worried. They probably wouldn't be making as much money back as they're putting out. And I think if they have continued success, they win a cup or two or more, they'll attract more fans from not just in California, but from even in my area or across the world as well, and it's bringing more revenue as well. So I don't think it's too much of an issue. I think if it was an issue, you would have heard a little bit more stories on this, and the possibility of moving the team or anything like that. But I don't think they're in a bad position at all.
Yeah, and I think the the mood with the team and with largely the fans is we talked about it's high expectations. The Ducks are going to be in the playoffs. I believe they will be consistently in the playoffs for several years. I mean, whether or not they'll be in first or second in the Pacific every year, that obviously that has to be played out. But I think this team is going to compete for years to come. And with all these extensions that you've seen, Kessler with the biggest one, of course. You got Silverberg and Hagelin for 4 more years, Dupree for 5 more years. Obviously, you still have Getzlaf and Perry for a while as well. I think that this team is going to be a contending team. I think they're going to be mentioned every year. I know a lot of people said that they're favored to win this year, which I think that adds a little bit of pressure on the team, like that I personally wouldn't want. I mean, it's a little added stress, but I think the best way for this team to make that financial commitment work is to go out there and win, and I think they will, and I think if they stick to the game plan, that they'll do it, Eddie.
Yeah, and you've not just going out there and winning, but being able to sustain long-term success. That comes down to management. It comes down to Murray and the scouts. And again, going back to Detroit, the only reason that they've been able to sustain so much success over the last 25 years is that they have the ability to bring in guys that from the draft and work them into their AHL team. And bring them up into their NHL team, later in their careers around 19, 20, 21, and they're able to be instant success. You've seen Thomas Tatar, Riley Sheahan, Dylan Larkin recently. A lot of guys who not many guys who drafted in the first round. A lot of guys drafted in the second, third, fourth, fifth round who come up and they end up being top 6, top 9 guys for the team, and that's something the Ducks have to work towards. And obviously we've seen that with Cardilli's having a shot possibly next year. Raquel is coming up now, and a lot of guys that you got to be able to work into the system and not just draft out of the first round, but get some hits in the second, third, fourth round to be able to sustain success.
Yeah, and with that success, comes the goals too, Eddie. They ended up beating the Reign both games, and the preseason they won their home opener with Nick Ritchie getting the first goal for the team. Speaking of someone that that could come up too, I mean, obviously he was first round, not later round pick, but that's going to factor hugely into this. I don't think people realize it yet, but this season we're going to see, and I don't want to put a black cloud out there, but players get hurt. I'm not saying that any of our guys will or hope that they will, but things happen. And the advantage the Ducks have now, and I mean, I know some of the other teams have their AHL teams out here too, But a huge advantage for the Ducks having the Gulls out here now is they're going to be able to call people up and back and forth. So I wouldn't doubt, seeing Richie maybe come into some of these games. Maybe Theodore gets thrown in there, Cardillis, like you said, are some of the players that may come and help sustain. Because this Ducks team is extremely deep. And you can tell that they're highly motivated. I remember some of the fans were talking about the Ducks rain game at Hondason and how Gibson was getting in some of the players' faces of the other team. Richie was throwing some punches. I mean, those guys could be on the Ducks team now, and obviously Gibson was for a stint. And I think it's good because you have this competitive level at the Gulls, a team that can compete for the Calder Cup and play extremely well and extremely entertaining hockey down there. To have them be able to come up and fill in spots, I think that's really going to help this goal of the Samuelis to be that kind of team. I don't look so much to Detroit. I know a lot of people mention that in the articles, Eddie, and I think if some of the people read mine, I talked more about, look at the Canadians. I mean, look what they did over decades. And I'm not saying that the Ducks are going to do that, but if that's what you want to go for, that's what I would go for. A team that has won the most Stanley Cups, which a lot of people don't realize, and they sustained it for several decades. Or if you want to go for a shorter burst, maybe the Islanders. Yeah, it was only the 80s, but they won 4 cups, and they could have easily won a 5th one, Eddie. So that's kind of what I look at, and I think that the Gulls are going to really help them keep this momentum up each season to be a competitor, Eddie.
Yeah, exactly. And Richie just looks like the guy that that could finally fill that left wing role with Getzlaf and Perry. I mean, he has all the qualities similar to Perry and Getzlaf. He's a bigger guy, he has a quick shot. He can make a good pass, and getting off the mark in the first game for the Gulls is always a good thing. And if somebody goes down, and you could see him possibly come up and even get maybe a chance on that first line, depending on his play and how things are shaping out, and who gets injured throughout the season. And I mean, if he ends up playing good, you never know, he could stick in the lineup. But we'll have to wait and see. That's a whiles away, and possible injuries too, something we don't want to see. So we'll have to wait until later the season to see if he'll get his chance or not.
Yeah, and it's just going to be fun hockey though in general, Eddie. I think being able to go to San Diego, watch some games, which I plan to do in the springtime. As some of you guys know, I have something called the bar exam in February, so I'm a little bit busy between now and then. But I'm going to try to go to some, in March, April time. And I might try to squeeze in one here beforehand. We'll have to see. But it's a good situation for the Ducks, and for the people that are concerned about the money. Don't worry about the owners spending X amount of money. All owners do this, and owners, eventually make their money back down the road by, usually selling the team. Which I don't think the Ducks are gonna, the Samuelis are gonna do that to the Ducks anytime soon. But I'm just saying that they'll be fine. It's not a big concern, Eddie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're not in a situation like Phoenix or like Arizona or Florida where you don't get a lot of attendance, your team doesn't make a lot of money, they're not successful, and so on and so on. The Ducks have a lot of things going in the right direction, and I'm sure it will turn around, with continued success.
Yeah, and the only other real thing that came up this weekend was the WHL started, Eddie. And Hillary Knight had a couple goals. I know you watched some of those games. Any of your thoughts on how the league started this weekend?
Yeah, it's nice to see when we get a professional hockey league. The NWHL is a good starting point for. It's only got 4 teams right now, but you got to remember the NHL only started with 6, and I watched the Boston Pride game the other day. Obviously, like you said, Hillary Knight scored 2 goals in that game, and they looked really good. They won the game 4-1, and the only thing that was kind of an issue was the camera that they had was a one stationary camera at the middle of center ice, so you couldn't see much going on down by both of the nets. But it was still a pretty entertaining game. I had a lot of fun watching it, and it's really interesting to see women's hockey get a professional league and start its way towards modeling after the NHL.
Yeah, it's always good. I'm always a proponent of all these other types of leagues that come out. They have the Special Olympic type leagues as well. and then now they're having these women leagues, especially for hockey. So I think it's a good thing overall, Eddie. I just hope that it keeps building up. We've got the WNBA, and now we've got the WHL. So I hope it keeps going. Obviously, it takes a little bit more time to grow, but I think it's going to be fun. It's going to help grow the sport of hockey in general.
Yeah, and there's a lot of women athletes, especially a lot of women hockey players that that are close to the amount of numbers of men who participate in hockey, and I think that them having a league to aspire to play in is great for them. And it obviously doesn't pay as much as the NHL right now, and unfortunately, if women play in that league, the highest salary is around $27,000, so they do have to get another job. But I mean, as of right now, with the league just starting, I'm sure a lot of them are just happy to participate in the history of the league and growing the sport of women's hockey.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be exciting times because we continue to grow the sport. And, talking about that, we actually had our first watch party this last Saturday for the Shark game. Obviously, the game result was not what we wanted, but the watch party was actually really fun. Phil Hewlett came and was there the entire time. We gave away some shirts, some beanies as well. We have a new shirt up on the website. If you haven't seen it yet, and you have a couple more coming, you can check them all out at DNPhockey.com. Is where all the gear is at. And it was a good event, Eddie. We were at El Ranchito Restaurant, downtown Orange, which is only, maybe 5-10 minutes away from Honda Center, for those of you that don't know. We had a banquet room where we had about 60 people in there watching the game on all the flat screens TVs. And we had several people in the bar area, too. So we had, it sounded like around 100 people. So it was pretty good, for the first time event. I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, I didn't know if 10 people would show up or 200. So it was a pretty good number. We're going to have 2 more at least at El Ranchito on the 22nd and the 26th. We already talked to the manager there, she's a big Ducks fan, obviously, and why we set it up. And we're going to do some more of those, like I said, in October, and then throughout the season. We just got to kind of plan the schedule and the events. And Eddie, if I can ever get you out here and get you to the party.
I'll have to try. I mean, it's a long distance to travel, but I mean, I would love to go to one of those watch parties. I saw a couple of the pictures that you put up on Facebook and Twitter, and it looked like a blast.
Yeah, and I also have to mention Josh helped out too. If you don't know Josh, he runs the Sons of Hockey blog, and he also sells hockey shirts as well. So give him a shout out for helping me. He plans to help me. He's been one of the other supporters out there, just like Brian at Ref You Suck, who's also helped me out too. So it's good to get other people to help out and make an event to build up hockey around here, not just for the fans, but with other people as well. And if any of you want to meet other people and come hang out and have a fun time, family atmosphere, you can bring your kids as well. It's not restricted to adults only, which we had several kids there, which was nice to see at the event. So that's what we have planned coming up. We'll have more giveaways and things that we'll do throughout the season. We already gave away the tickets for tonight's game on our podcast, so we'll have more of those coming up. And just appreciate the support. Keep following along, and Eddie and I will try to do podcasts, every week, usually Sunday or Monday. Just kind of depends. We both have school, so we have to kind of figure out our schedules. But that'll be it, and we'll see you next week.
The Anaheim Ducks are the Stanley Cup champions.